Hey guys, today we'll be discussing the Middle Colonies, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and also Delaware, even though I didn't put Delaware on the slide. But Delaware is not that important anyway. Let's get started. So the first colony we're going to talk about is New York, which actually started out life known as the New Netherlands. And so the reason for this is that the colony was actually first settled not by the English, but by people from the Netherlands. This is the place, remember, where the Puritans or the Pilgrims stayed for a while they were seeking a place in the New World. But so anyway, the Netherlands are trying to compete with the English for New World territory, and they claim this really sweet island called Manhattan that you might have heard of. And they set up a bustling trading city there, which they name New Amsterdam. And this city does pretty well, and it attracts immigrants from all over Europe. But around 1660, the English king decides that he would like to give this land to his brother, who happens to be the Duke of York. And England, being a bigger and more powerful nation, simply attacks the island and takes it from the Netherlands soon after that. And in that way, the island becomes an English colony, and they change the name from the New Netherlands to New York, named after the Duke of York and the city that he came from. So that's where New York came from. Anyway, yes, like I just said. Yeah, so now let's talk about Pennsylvania, and this is a slightly more complicated story. So we have to go back first to this religious group in England called the Quakers. And they're another religious minority, kind of like the Separatists and the Puritans. But they bother the English king even more than the other groups do. And this is for a couple reasons. First of all, the Quakers are total pacifists. They believed that Christianity taught that you should never harm anybody, no matter what, much less fight wars. They also believe that all human beings are equal before God. And so they refuse to swear oaths to the king or even tip their hats to government officials. Both of these things bother the English king, and for this reason they are persecuted by the English government. And so this goes on for a while until this guy named William Penn intervenes. And William Penn was a wealthy guy who believed in the same ideas as the Quakers. And not only this, but he was also owed an incredible amount of money from the king, an amount of money so vast that the king could never possibly pay it off. What this meant is that the king, instead of paying William Penn, just gave him a huge chunk of land in America that he could do whatever he wanted with. Penn decides to open up this land as a colony, especially for Quakers, and for other religious refugees from England as well. This colony is named Pennsylvania in honor of William Penn, and it's a pretty special colony in a couple ways. First of all, there's total religious freedom in Pennsylvania. So not just like up in Massachusetts where you're free to be a Puritan or to be kicked out, but really you can believe anything you want and you'll probably be accepted in Pennsylvania. There's no official church. Nobody has to pay taxes to support a church. And many immigrants from all over Europe come. Germans and Dutch and people from Scotland, as well as people from England, all come to Pennsylvania. Another thing that's I guess nice about Pennsylvania is they believe in the fair treatment of Native Americans. So rather than just taking their land and killing them, the people from Pennsylvania believe that the Native Americans should be treated like human beings, just like everybody else. Remember, the Quakers believe in total equality. And instead of stealing the land, they purchase it at a fair price. Also, the Quakers hold women in higher regard than most other groups, and they allow women to participate fully in religious ceremonies. Last of all, William Penn founds Philadelphia, which is commonly known as the City of Brotherly Love. Philadelphia grows to become one of the most important colonial cities, and part of the reason for this is that everybody is welcome and nobody is persecuted, so the city's population grows more quickly than it would have otherwise. The Quaker colony in Pennsylvania is extremely successful, and for this reason, the Quakers begin to spread out throughout this middle area of the United States. One group spreads out from Philadelphia and purchases land in what is today known as New Jersey, and they set up a colony there. Another group heads south and they begin to colonize this area known as Delaware. And Delaware eventually becomes an independent colony, but it's actually governed from Philadelphia, that is, from up in Pennsylvania, until the American Revolution. So Delaware actually becomes kind of a southern extension of Quaker Pennsylvania. All three of these colonies, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey, developed together during the colonial period according to Quaker ideals. And so now we need to look at the similarities of these middle colonies, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, and think about what makes them different from the other colonial areas that we've looked at. So they're actually kind of a middle ground between North and South, not just geographically, but in terms of lots of other things. So like the South, there's good agriculture in these areas. They have fertile soil, and it's warm enough to grow some decent crops. But they don't grow plantation stuff. They don't grow cotton or tobacco. But instead they raise a lot of food, growing wheat and corn and raising lots of animals. And this allows them to support a large population of people there. They also develop a good trading system and some simple industry like that's happening in the North. They build lots of ships, they participate in lots of trade, and they set up some of the earliest factories in North America. There is some slavery in these colonies, but not very much, because they don't need to import lots of labor because they don't have plantations like in the South. Another thing that is similar between all of them is there's basically religious toleration among these colonies. Not so much in New York, but in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey, there's religious freedom, and this means that people from all over Europe can come to these areas. So not just English people, but Germans and Scottish people and people of all different religious backgrounds can come to Pennsylvania and live there and succeed. And partially for this reason, the middle colonies are thriving by the middle of the colonial period. And they have a growing population, they have great agriculture, and a booming economy based on both agriculture and industry and trading. So a lot of people view the middle colonies as the most important and the healthiest part of colonial America. That's all for today. We'll talk about this more in class.